What's the juicy drama going on in your workplace? Story 1, I work at a place that manufactures hose. Part of the process of making the hose is inserting various types of nozzles into the end, then crimping it tightly to the hose so it does not come off. When we crimp a nozzle to a hose, it leaves a specific pattern that is unique to our crimper. We received a report that one of our customers had failed at the nozzle. That's bad because when a high-pressure hose fails, you want it to explode in the middle rather than at the nozzles. You want it that way because when those nozzles come off with several hundreds or even thousands of PSI of water in them, they're like a deadly weapon. So we send someone to their location and ask them to show us the house that failed. After 30 seconds, he says, "This isn't our hose. It's not the same crimp spec or pattern." And then he left. It turns out that the company had actually tried to crimp the hose on their own, using the wrong spec, which is why it failed at the nozzle. They were going to use it to get free hose out of us. That same company has given us many problems before, and we are considering dropping them as a client. Story 2, there's a coup shaping up right now. About 4 years ago, we were purchased by a foreign company that cleaned houses at the top ranks and decided to promote a new CEO internally to try and keep some stability. The final 2 candidates were the Vice President of Engineering, Vice President of Sales, and Vice President of Business Development. The VP of Engineering ended up being promoted and has done an abysmal job running the company. The VP of Business Development ended up working at a competitor after getting passed over for the promotion. The company has not grown as expected since the acquisition, and now the company that owns us is showing signs that they're ready for a shakeup. The VP of Sales here was previously the CEO at a different company, so the company that owns us is starting to ask him a lot of questions about what's going on since he has executive experience. He's been going behind the CEO's back to give the company that owns us the story of what's really happening, as the CEO is getting desperate to save his own skin. Where this really goes off the rails is that at a trade show several of us were at, a few of us overheard the CEO talking to some competition about jumping ship and joining them. It was completely coincidental. We all went to the same bar after the show without knowing each other were going to be there, and the CEO didn't realize we were the next table over. Someone, and I really don't know who, there were 5 of us that overheard that conversation, secretly told the company that owns us that the CEO is getting ready to sell out the company and work with competition despite having a non-compete. The company that owns us doesn't know what to think about it because they don't know who to trust. Things are going to be interesting in the next couple months. Story 3, I recently found out our receptionist is in a doomsday cult. Over the last 6 months, I've slowly put the pieces together. I knew she was very religious, but something always seemed a bit off. She was always inviting me to Bible studies and offering to teach me things about myself, about the world through the Bible. She told me all this bullshit was predicted in the Bible, like World War II and 9/11, that kind of stuff. I repeatedly politely informed her, I'm an atheist, I grew up in a church, I've read the Bible, and that kind of stuff isn't for me. Then I noticed that in another tab on her browser, there is always some sort of news article about impending nuclear war with North Korea or Iran or something like that. So one day I just straight up asked her what church she goes to, just trying to make conversation. She told me the Church of God, the full name is the World Mission Church of God. Now, if you Google this, the first 15 results will be ex-members calling it a cult and that sort of thing. So immediately I knew something was up. I started researching it and everything added up. They recruit members similar to Mormons but more extreme. The approach, usually, minority college-aged girls on campuses. This makes sense because she is Dominican, and she told me she was shown this at college. This group is also banned from a lot of college campuses around the US, so they come up to these girls when they are at a very vulnerable time in their life, off at college for the first time, they don't know anyone, and they tell them about how the Bible predicted all this bullshit, and then to really get them on the hook, they inform them that God is not only a man, but there is a father God and a mother God. So then they get them to start coming to the church every Saturday all day. The crazy thing is, the nearest sector to us is 2 hours away, so she travels 2 hours to church every single week. That's commitment. So they slowly brainwash them. They convince them to give them 10% of their income, which she does, and she is already barely scraping by financially. They require them to dress conservatively, which she does, and they require them to bring new members as often as possible, almost like a pyramid scheme. So this church is relatively new in the US. It started in Korea when a dude named An Sang Hong claimed to be the second incarnation of Jesus Christ, and his wife was the female god. He died around 20 years ago, so according to their beliefs, Christ has now come and gone a second time, so we are in Revelations, which means The world will be ending any day now and they will go to heaven to hang out with Korean Jesus. Story 4. Well, at my old job at a supermarket, there was a relationship between a manager and a cashier. Manager, technically front-end coordinator, let's call him Dick, uses the company system to look up a cashier's information to stalk the shit out of her social media. Dick is one level above all the cashiers. We will call this cashier Girl. So Dick is a bit of a creeper and eventually adds a girl on Facebook to start messaging. Girl, I guess, finds Dick somewhat attractive enough to go out on a date with. They go on a few dates and kiss, hook up, and it's going fine, but Dick steps it up with the creepiness and drops the L-bomb 2 weeks into when they first started talking. Girl gets creeped out and refuses to say it back for a little bit. Girl also tells Dick multiple times she is not looking for anything serious because life and she is leaving for college soon. Girl specifically says, "I do not want a boyfriend," and Dick says, "I know." A day later, 2 other managers, one level above Girl, say, "Hey, I heard you are Dick's girlfriend," and she gets teased and is annoyed. Girl is unhappy, but continues to see Dick because she doesn't know how to end it without it affecting her job. Dick becomes more possessive and schedules Girl every time he is scheduled, calls her every night, says "I love you" every conversation, refuses to meet up at places, picks her up and drives her wherever, shows up to the apartment building she lives in to surprise her. Generally, creepy possessive people. Finally, a month into the mayhem, Girl is pressured to say "I love you" and does, while Dick is a dick. Girl leaves for college about a week later. Dick calls her every night and gets mad when the girl goes to a party or hangs out in a group with a male. Girl stops talking to Dick and blocks his number. Girl gets Dick out of her mind and starts to date a guy she met. Girl gets a call from a restricted number, and it's Dick who is drunk and says he is sorry, but he is unable to make a surprise visit in a month. Also, he is a father of a kid he originally claimed was a nephew. Girl hangs up, continues the date she is on, and pretends Dick doesn't exist. Next day, Dick gets angry and messages on every social media platform and blocks Girl so she can't respond to the messages. When the girl comes back from college, the girl quits the cashier job and gets a better job. Story 5. Ex-coworker started acting oddly, stopped dressing nicely, stopped wearing makeup and brushing hair before coming in, and although she had a history of arriving 5 to 10 minutes late a couple times a week, it went to 15 to 20, and on most days. A close family member had been given some bad medical news, so we all thought she was depressed from that, but then she never spoke of it, so we weren't sure. She started carrying a little black purse to the toilet whenever she went, and though we thought it was odd, we didn't realize it was anything bad until she leaves it in the men's toilet one day. No idea why, maybe she thought it was a better hiding spot. Our male boss goes in and thinks maybe a courier left it behind, opens it to see who it belongs to, finds 2 crack pipes and a couple bags of ice. She had been smoking it in the toilets during the day for a while, all while complaining constantly about everyone else's work ethic and how slack we all were. She got fired, of course, and once she'd left, we found she had been pretending to work for a while and had a lot of orders she hadn't even read in her inbox. Took a couple of weeks and a lot of angry customers to get it all sorted. Story 6. My old boss is great at her job, but is a horrible leader. I was her one of 2 right-hand people who make her job possible, and we unknowingly both put our notice in within 24 hours of each other. She cried, but she's made all of us cry too, and belittles staff to the point where it's almost abusive gaslighting. The other people who could work with her refuse to, at the risk of losing their jobs. She's also driven away 2 highly trained managers in 6 months who are technically supposed to be her boss. No one wants to work with her or for her, and the big boss doesn't recognize the problem despite being told and despite the significant evidence. After being called out and having to face huge, unsolvable staff turnover at my former position, she's switching to part-time. To make things worse for the company, she has driven off every candidate for the other days, because again, she's a terrible know-it-all who cuts people down. You can only be subtly but definitely humiliated in front of clients so many times before you either believe you're worthless or decide to nope out of that mindfuckery. Story 7. Where to begin? There's the big one. So we're a fairly small company, 9 stores spread out throughout New York State. We sell clothes, shoes, and military surplus to our sporting goods. At the beginning of this year, the CEO, the son of the company founder, put the store up for sale as his kids didn't want the job. The job eventually went to the former vice president of the company. The former vice president is now the CEO, and the former regional manager, basically all store managers' bosses, is now the vice president. Well, the two of them, being the two in charge now, decided to make some changes. Originally, our store occupied store spaces in our plaza, so there used to be 2 leases. However, the owners of the plaza, feeling that a shift in management would be a good time, asked for the new CEO to not renew the lease on the second space, as they want to put something else there. The people who work at the warehouses at our main store have been tasked with getting all our shit out of the second space by August 1st when the lease expired. We got most of the stuff we sell out of there except for our guns, which required moving the cabinets themselves as we can't just leave them out in the open. Well, first of all, these warehouse workers didn't start until 2 weeks before the first, meaning they were running on a tight schedule as is. Also, every single one except for like 2 take their breaks at the same time, so it leaves a half-hour, 45-minute period of time around noon where nothing is getting done. A lot of the tasks require several people to do at once. One of them in particular is a bit of a bitch. She and one of the other warehouse workers like to eat lunch outside, so they take folding chairs from our old break room, which hasn't been completely emptied yet, but we'll get to that later. Well, one day before their break, they left their folding chairs up front while they went to go clock out and get their stuff. While they were gone, an older man who was shopping was short of breath and needed somewhere to sit. My manager, who was up front at the time, got out one of the chairs and had him sit in it to catch his breath. Well, after a minute or so, the 2 warehouse workers came back, and the one whose chair it was told him to get up. Didn't wait to make sure he was okay, didn't even ask a fucking question. She just said, "Get up." So yeah, she's definitely a bitch. Back to the actual clearing out of stuff. Something to keep in mind is that the second space had a lot of important shit in it. Ignoring the guns, that side of the store still had our backstock room, our break room, the manager, assistant manager offices, and our cash office, including the safe. So if we're getting rid of the space, we need to have new rooms built for those spaces, which are pretty important. They only just started building those a few days before August 1st. So now we're behind schedule, and the CEO's got to pay some sort of fee to the plaza owner. Although for some fucking reason they decided moving our shoe department into the middle of our space, as opposed to the back wall, which was where it was originally. So now we've got a big square in the middle of our store, meaning that the employees up front, such as myself, have zero visibility of the back of the store, and shoplifting has always been a problem for us. Since the new rooms haven't been built as well, they made a tiny little entrance into the second space so people can get back to the rooms for whatever reason they may need, but getting through all of that's a hassle. Seriously, to get from the front of the store to those back rooms is like navigating the fucking mansion from the first Resident Evil game. It's madness. The CEO vice president aren't making life easier anyway. The first day of construction, we finally got all of our stuff situated as the gun cabinets finally got moved to the new department location. That same day, those 2 came in, and you know what they decided? They liked that department better on the other side, so basically all merchandise in our store had to get moved around. They also wanted to put one of our dressing rooms to a different location, so they had the warehouse workers tear one of them down. The only problem is that they haven't started working on the new dressing room. Normally we have 2, one for women and one for men. The women's one got knocked down, so now we're just down to the men's ones. And since we're not allowed to let women into the men's one or vice versa, a queue forms outside of our dressing rooms when one sex is trying on clothes, which is incredibly inconvenient. Then there's a few of my coworkers themselves. One is this kid who recently joined, who went to my high school, as was in the grade below me. This kid is a stupid asshole. He's an idiot who thinks he knows what he's doing, but is an idiot who had to have basic things explained to him even after he was trained. 2 of the sports department workers who trained him also liked to screw around with him and gave him a few lies about what to do in the department. For example, they lied to him and told him that when it comes to the fishing bait we sell, he actually has to go in there and check the worms to make sure they're good, which isn't actually something you're supposed to do. He's also incredibly annoying. Over the course of a few weeks, he insulted Italians, said Russia has a model government, gave me the worst idea for a movie I'd ever heard. Basically, it's about a Russian spy who gets into a fight with a liberal spy throughout the movie. The movie ends with the Russian spy winning because the liberal reaches for his gun, but then realizes he doesn't have a gun on him because he's a liberal who hates guns. I'm not making this shit up, etc. One of my managers, who is a friendly old lady who will chat up customers and coworkers all the time, said she doesn't like him. There's also this one old lady in our clothing department who almost everyone either dislikes or outright hates. Basically, since day one, she's wanted to be a manager. She seems to act like it at least. bossing around other workers in the department, despite the fact that she is not any higher rank than them whatsoever. She also claims to be the one keeping the department together when in reality, she does as little work as possible and leaves it to be done by the other people in her department, then claims the credit. She organizes her department in the weirdest way possible as well, and will bitch and moan if anyone tries to rearrange it so it looks like a functioning human being organized it. In addition to our warehouse workers, we've also had some people from the marketing department come in to help with the organizing of the story. They organize the department to the point where it actually looks really nice. This coworker said that as soon as they're done, she's rearranging it how she'd like to, thinking she knows better than the people who spent several years in college studying marketing and all that stuff. When one of our old managers left a few months back and we were down one manager for about a month, she kept implying to the other managers that she'd make a good one. Doesn't help that she tries to kiss up to the CEO/vice president whenever they're in. She'll never get promoted though, because she's so disliked throughout the store that the managers know that if she's ever made into one, half the store will quit on the spot. One of the people in the same department is probably one of my favorite coworkers. He's a short, feisty Italian guy whose kids go to the same college as me. He reminds me a lot of my grandfather. Basically, he's reaching the end of his rope with her, and everyone else knows that it's only a matter of time before he explodes on her. My only hope is that I'm there to see it. There's probably more I'm missing, but I think I've painted enough of a picture. Basically, the only reason I'm still working there is the money, college, plus my dad losing his job makes it a bit of a necessity at this point, and my coworkers. I actually really like the majority of my coworkers. Hell, I managed to get one of my best friends a job there when he left his previous one, and since he started, he's been doing an amazing job. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the day when I no longer have to keep working there. I'm sure my blood pressure looks good on that day too. Story 8, I suppose I'm the drama. I'm resigning a position I've held for 20 years to move across the country due to an epic nervous breakdown midlife crisis. I've worked at this family-owned company longer than the current owner. I've helped train or mentor every person that's walked through the door over the past 15 years. My boss took the news harder than my mother. We've had a recent exodus of trained and experienced employees, and our supplier, the local community college, has dropped the program that taught our people. Shouldn't have been a surprise. The boss and I damn near came to blows several times a few years back because I had gone back to school and he purposely dicked with my schedule and duties while I was in school. This generally led to one day a week, where I was awake for 36 hours straight, plus another day that was like 22 hours of classwork. It's important to note, sleeping wasn't guaranteed at work, but it is encouraged on overnights. Fatigue is dangerous in my line of work, but understaffing is a matter of survival for the business, so sleeping is a luxury on the night shift. I finished school a year ago, but due to certain civic duties, fuck grand jury really, it holds no bearing in modern law and allows the government to scapegoat juries, I was unable to accept the only local job offer I've received. Now, I've worked there for 20 years, but I haven't been primarily employed by them the entire time. In fact, I'm on my 7th full-time job with them. I often get frustrated with issues beyond my employer's control, drop to part-time, and pick up a full-time elsewhere for a while. So now the big drama is, has he finally lost it, or is he coming back in 6 months? Little do they know I'm letting my certification that takes 2 years to earn expire, and hope to never have this level of physical, emotional, or psychological stress and abuse ever again. Story 9. Nothing current, but fairly recent. It happened about a year ago. This is all stuff I've pieced together, because the people involved won't speak about it. We're a small company. There's a core group of 3 full-time people, plus a shifting number of 2 to 5 part-timers, 3 or 4 independent contractors, and a lawyer and an accountant who I've never met. I'm one of the part-timers. There used to be a 4th core person. She was the one keeping everything organized and on time. She worked hard to keep everything running smoothly with all deadlines met. We'll call her Kay. She was nice enough, but when you spoke with her for a while, you got the sense that she was hiding a lot of resentment. Kay was having trouble making ends meet and asked for more hours, which our boss gladly granted her. However, she wasn't prepared for it psychologically. She became tired and irritable, and she wasn't exactly the picture of serenity before. The breaking point was when the boss forgot to give time and a half for overtime, giving her only her regular pay. Our boss is a very nice person, and I like working for her, but she's not very organized and at times scatterbrained. Kay's boyfriend, thinking it was done on purpose, urged Kay to report our boss to the state labor board, which she did without talking to the boss about it. They were able to work something out, though I don't know the details. Now you're probably thinking that's not very dramatic. Well, there's more. Somehow, Kay was the only person in the office who knew how to adjust the settings on the punch clock. She was changing times around to give herself more hours and more pay without anybody realizing. Basically, stealing from the company in addition to whatever overtime compensation she agreed to with the boss. Allegedly, she was stealing other money from the company as well, but I don't know the details. I also don't know if any of this ever went to court. At some point, our boss got suspicious and started to investigate, and Kay up and quit, which threw everything out of order. Kay was basically irreplaceable. She was working the most hours out of anyone, and she was in charge of a ton of things, many of which only she really knew how to do. I've had to watch YouTube tutorials for some of the machines we have that she was in charge of using, and at some point I examined every folder on our network that she organized to make sense of her categorization system. She was also the one who made sure deadlines were met, so now all our work is coming out late and our clients are complaining. There was also the time we got burglarized. So, we used to have this trailer where we kept some of our junk. It was stolen. Some guys came in at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, hooked it up to their truck, and drove off with it. We filed a police report, but they said it was probably repainted by now and long gone. End of story, right? Well, the following Monday, a guy comes into the office and says he's one of the guys who stole the trailer. He said wanted to do the right thing and let us know where they took the trailer. Maybe it was a stroke of good conscience, or maybe he got screwed out of some money by his buddies. Either way, the boss thanked him and gave him a cookie. The trailer, according to his description, was repainted in a 4th of July red, white, blue pattern and driven to a city an hour away, but the contents had been emptied and most of the stuff was still at the house. So she calls up her friend, a card-carrying NRA member, and they decide to go together to the house where it was taken, an abandoned house in a middle-income suburban neighborhood. Luckily, they didn't do anything stupid, or at least nothing stupider than going to a criminal's house. They went to the house, confirmed that our stuff was littering the backyard, and called the police. The police raided the house, and we regained about half of the stuff that was stolen. Of course, now we have nowhere to put the stuff, so parts of the office are now difficult to traverse due to the junk. Among other things, I have to move a fake door out of the way anytime I want to use the microwave, and of course I'm the only one who uses that microwave, so I'm the only one who cares. Story 10, my former boss showed up for, on average, about 10 hours a month, for about 2 years. He is salaried. I got hired on and just assumed he was busy in meetings and stuff. I got trained by the other guy, who was really good at letting me formulate my own opinions before revealing how much he hated our boss. Anyway, our department is crucial and they can't really get rid of it, so we got transferred under a different department so they could try to fix things and manage us better. They didn't do shit. Eventually, after exhausting all other means, like trying to talk to my boss, trying to help encourage him, he didn't, so I spoke to our new department manager, literally walked in, closed the door, and said, "So what the fuck is the deal with boss?" He got demoted but got to keep his pay, and then a shitstorm broke out, and a bunch of people who had been quiet all spoke up. HR was gearing up to do something, and then he claims FMLA and is apparently now untouchable, so now he works even less. I'm on vacation and the department is scattered. The people who work there don't want to work and hide away from their desks, and the workload is once again getting huge. I drove it down substantially. Our team is put through analytics as if we had 3 full-time employees. The kicker, I'm an hourly student employee, so I'm put through analytics as a full-timer, have been recognized for my ability as a tempering force that is the only thing that can get out department working. I've dropped workloads, increased our reputation and relation with other departments, revamped our system, programming custom tools to help with the job. I'm also working with project managers to help review building automation and mechanic systems for new building construction, as well as in contact with the contractor to commission all buildings and make sure they are up to spec and call out any issues so they can be recorded before warranty dates and have the contractor held responsible. I'm also learning how to configure and program new systems and logic controllers in proprietary and usually legacy shit languages, all while recording this all to build training material. For all of it. A full-time position was funded for our department, especially our 3-person one. My manager wanted to hire his friend who had 0 experience. It was made aware in no subtle terms by various associates who have my back that it would be a bad move. I also expressed that I would not provide any training to this person if they hired them full-time and kept me hourly, so now they are trying to hire me full-time. However, the latest setback was HR. HR waited 3 weeks after my formal job offer to officially tell us they don't know how to hire me full-time. Not they can't, not they won't. They don't know how. As in, they don't know how the H-1B process works. I'm an international student, even though they have an immigration attorney on staff. Their recommendation was to just work full-time on my student visa and go to school part-time. This would get me kicked out of the country and school. So now I have researched extensively into the H-1B process, have provided HR with step-by-step instructions on what to do, how to do it, etc., and we are waiting back to see what their next move is. Sorry for the long post. This has been my life lately.